Well, thank you so very much, everyone. I'm Dr. Isabelle Amigues, and your friendly rheumatologist and the host of Unabridged MD. And this is another episode of our stories of hope that are coming directly from our amazing patients. And today we have a wonderful story of hope. So if you have been someone that has dealt with a lot of symptoms, that have gone from one doctor to another and almost felt like giving up, please tune in, listen to the story of Stacy, because that will give you hope. Stacy, thank you so much for being here, for all of our listeners. Thank you. And would you share your story with us?
Sure. I actually have a medical background, which made things perhaps more complicated. But for years, I'd had joint pain and extreme fatigue and just kind of unexplained symptoms. And the traditional physicians would look at me and say, "You look fine, you look vibrant, your basic labs are all normal. So, like, get more sleep or drink more caffeine or some dumb things like that." And but I knew in my gut that there was something wrong or something that was just not quite right. I didn't feel well and was just pushing through and continuing to get worse, actually. So I found Dr. Amigues through just a very happy accident conversation with a former patient, and was delighted to get the appointment with her. Um, I think the first thing we think of is like well, not only beautiful and lovely, but she's brilliant and a master diagnostician. So she was able to put the pieces together, and just from a strictly medical perspective, like run the right test, get the right answers, and move towards solutions. But I think the real asset of Dr. Amigues is giving hope, and like her positive spirit and attitude. I've never met such a lovely, optimistic, and hopeful and inspiring physician. So she's truly given me a new lease on life. Like, I physically feel better than I have in at least a decade. And I'm a lifelong athlete, so it's not just that I'm, sitting around, but I've actually been working hard and trying hard and still moving, and had been eating clean and like doing all the right things. So having someone finally put some pieces together, but also give me hope, because I was a bit at the end of my rope. So
I
that
want,
has changed everything dramatically for me.
I want to ask you, because you're jumping right away talking about the practice, which thank you so much. Like I really appreciate. Uh, um, and I always say that it's the patient that gives us the diagnosis. So it's how much you have given me that allows for the diagnosis and allows the proper treatment, right? Um, it's you mentioned something about intuition, that you said intuitively I knew something was wrong. And so what I wonder is, if we can touch upon this thing of when you say something was wrong, I mean, clearly something was wrong. Are you saying that some other doctors were telling you nothing is wrong? Like, and what,
Correct.
so can you maybe, like, if you're okay with that, can you share a little bit what made you like, okay, first of all, it is a little weird for me that a doctor would say everything is fine. Is it that they were saying I cannot see anything, uh, or that I cannot see anything that would potentially need treatment, or like like tell us about your intuition. I'm very big on this, and I think we as physicians need to listen, because our intuition as physician is also super important, like incredibly important. But the intuition of our patient is like just even more important, I think. Tell us more about this, especially with your medical background.
So they would do, let's see, they being the collective primary care physician. I've seen four or five different functional medicine providers, from nurse practitioner to chiropractor to MD. And I think some would say, like, you're fine, I don't see anything wrong, all your labs come back fine, like maybe you're just depressed, or would put this idea that it's merely psychosomatic, and that is, I think, insulting to the patient, and it became a little demoralizing over time because it's like, I know what depression, I'm not depressed. I physically am fatigued, and those are different. Now, over time, of course, the fatigue and the chronic pain does lead to depression and a bit of like a hopelessness feeling, but no one ever said, and I was actively seeking. I have been to concierge, cash pay physicians and functional medicine providers for several years, actually probably 10 years. And then I went to like internal medicine, and I remember actually the best description was my OBGYN, or like gynecologist physician, and she said, honey, your endocrine system is all wonky. And that's not a medical term, but I don't know what else to say. She said, it's all messed up and I don't know how to fix it. So I tried to get into an endocrinologist, which you cannot just directly schedule. And it was, if I hadn't been such a fierce self-advocate, I think I would have given up years ago. But I had this intuition of like, there is something more. And I do believe the body always wants to heal itself and will, given the right environment. And I was just like, okay, someone help me point towards what is the right environment and how can I achieve like healing and
Mhm.
optimal health.
I love this. I love what you said about the body will heal itself. And I'm such a big fan of this because I feel like our medicine, well, especially Western medicine, are only here to help our body heal. If you actually think about it, any
Yes.
medication, what it does is help our body heal. It's not the medication that does the work, it's the body that does the work with that little help. Um, just because I'm thinking, you know, I do see a lot of patients who have seen many other docs and or who have been. I think the worst is when they've been gaslit, and this
Yes.
is and so it's something that's really important to me because I'm a woman, and a lot of the patients that are being gaslit are women.
Yes.
And so what I wonder is what, some people, some patients will completely give up and they're like,
Yes.
yeah, whatever. Like, and they give up and so their life is tough. And oh man, the number of patients that I see and they have been okay with not being okay. And
Yes.
somehow, I don't know why. I mean, I asked them and we discussed that, of course, but like it sort of seems completely unrelated to anything. Maybe one day they have more pain and they're like, I'm so done. Let me go and see Dr. Amigues, But what I wonder, it's not really about me. That's not what it is about, because it's about you and about patients. And our auditors are all over, right? It's not just in Colorado. But it's how do you what advice would you give after seeing so many doctors? What is it? Were you hoping to some symptoms may have come up? So maybe now I'm more easily diagnosed, like diagnosable. I don't know if you say that. Or is it I'm gonna keep until we figure this out? Like what is and what's the advice that you would have for women who are being and women and men, but mostly women, I really think so, that are being gaslit? What's the advice?
Yeah, I totally agree. I do think as women we get gaslit and they lump it into like, oh, you have fibromyalgia, which is this like sort of thing no one wants to touch.
Mhm.
And it does kind of link towards psychosomatic. And I don't think there's plenty to say that trauma and past experiences do contribute to autoimmune, but it doesn't make it any less real. It doesn't make it any less real to the patient. And what I was finding is like it started with joint pain. So you see an orthopedist. Western medicine seems to be incredibly siloed and segmented. And so the orthopedist is like you have joint pain because you have arthritis, let's give you an anti-inflammatory. Well, then that messes up your gut. But he doesn't care or, isn't versed on gut stuff. So then you see a functional medicine to address the gut. And then everything, I saw a neurologist, and like each specialty is so segmented, and to find someone to put all the pieces together, which was something I thought I could do decently on my own. I mean, at least having enough of an understanding to say, no, there's something deeper, there's something systemic that's touching all of these organs, but there is a root cause, if you will, and that everything is connected. And so who is the expert to say, how are these all connected, and what is the root cause that can manifest as joint pain, and can manifest as headaches, and can manifest as fatigue, but underneath that there is something at the root. So I think continuing to just like, no, there's what is the origin of this, and who can put the pieces together.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that's actually such an important point that you're making, which is listen to what your body has to say. And I think, so this is maybe some advice, and I know maybe not wanted, but hopefully people who are listening to this podcast want advice, but I think that intuition is incredibly powerful.
Yes.
And we've got to listen, and you wouldn't know the number of time where it's the intuition of my patient who led me to their diagnosis. I remember an ER visit. So when I was doing my second residency in New York City, there's a patient that comes in, and I'm a rheumatologist. I've been a rheumatologist for a very long time, but he comes in and he's like, I think I have, what is it? It was like a neurologic Guillain-Barré. So it's a neurologic issue where it comes from the feet and goes up, but he didn't have that presentation. But he was so distraught, and the attending was like, we need to discharge him. And I Googled, because I'm not a neurologist, and I was like, well, it doesn't present like Guillain-Barré, but let me just see. So I Googled his symptoms. I did put Guillain-Barré in it, just, I want to make sure that if I tell him this is not Guillain-Barré, I've actually looked at everything. And here is this variation called Miller-Fisher. That one I will always remember. Miller-Fisher, which is one where you have like eyes change, like it's basically an eye issue and ataxia. So you feel like you're not walking normally. So I'm showing this to the attending. I'm like, because she was like, are we discharging him? And she was really adamant about it. And she didn't want to have to do anything with him. And I was like, hold on. He actually has all of those things. And so I didn't make the diagnosis. The patient made the diagnosis. I listened to him and I Googled it. And the patient was admitted. A neuro-ophthalmologist actually called me the next day and he was like, how did you figure it out? This is such a rare diagnosis. And I was like, the patient told me. Like, he didn't tell me the exact diagnosis, but he told me that he thought he had that, and that was like a specific form of it. Lo and behold, basically he had the antibodies, he actually responded to treatment, and the neuro-ophthalmologist basically was like, by admitting him, you saved his eye, you saved him, because he would have been so much worse. And I was like, I didn't do anything. I listened to him and he did the diagnosis. I felt bad that I didn't know about it, but I was like, well, you cannot know everything. I'm a very good rheumatologist, not an incredibly good neurologist. But this story to me is one that I always share, because it would have been so easy to say, sorry, you don't have Guillain-Barré. I don't know what you have, but this is nothing. Like, you're fine. Like, and he looked fine. I will tell you, he looked absolutely fine. And it was just like, he was distraught and he was like, I think I have Guillain-Barré. And you're like, well, I mean, before I say that you don't have it, like, I'm going to make sure, right? And I always think of this when patients are coming in, because I'm always wondering, is there something that I'm missing that I don't know? Because you know yourself, right? So I wanted to share that. The second thing is the grit that you have of saying, I'm going to figure it out with the help of. So that I'm so, like, it's so good. And I really hope everyone was like that, because the worst for me is when I see patients who have been okay with not being okay, because then, how do you tell them, hey, you can actually get to remission? That's the goal. And they're like, yeah, but I'm 60% better, so I'm fine. No,
Right.
you're
Right.
not, so there's that. Um, and the other thing that really talked to me, that you mentioned, was the fragmentation. And the reason I'm sharing this is that, the word unabridged. So I'm not, my first language is French. And then there is English that I've learned much later in life. And I love that word unabridged, right? That it's the non-edited version. And so when I opened the practice, I wanted to reflect the absence of fragmentation. This idea that you're not siloed, but as a patient, you're a full person. And we want to look at you as a full person and not fragmented, the way that the insurance system is obliging us to care for our patients, because they only pay so little that you can only see one problem per patient. And then you have to ask them to come back in a month or 2 or 3. Oh, well, we dealt with this one thing. And then you're like, okay, now we are dealing with this other thing. And you're like, wait, hold on. Like, you've got to put it together. So sorry, I'm taking a long time, but it really spoke to me, this non-fragmented. What do you think, if you had, a magic wand, and we could fix the healthcare system, what, I know, right? What, like, or even as a patient, what do you wish you would see more of? Like, what do you feel is needed right now?
Oh, I have a few parts. Uh, First, I love your story, and I think the biggest thing that makes you so incredible as a physician and provider is that you do listen, and that you do believe in intuition, both your own and your patients. I think that is missing. Certainly, I think 50 years ago, our old country where I grew up, let's say 30 years ago, our old country physician had would spend more time with you and knew you over a long period of time, and so there was, a little bit more of kind of listening and seeing the holistic. But now, because of the third party payer system, which I think is a real problem, because you have a third person who's not medical mandating the time you spend and what's going to be paid for. And then you can't, a physician can't run a practice without getting paid. Medical school debt aside, even, it's just not, it just doesn't make sense, not feasible. So they have kind of dictated this very, very short time and this one problem at a time, and you can only focus on one thing. And then everyone's become very hyper focused. I also don't think, I don't know about, let's say, the last 5 to 10 years, but American medical schools don't teach nutrition, and they just teach a lot of the, like, let's say, hard sciences, chemistry, microbiology, that kind of stuff. But I don't think they do a great job of incorporating it all together in the human body. And we are not just a mixture of independent systems, but everything is interdependent. And your face gives feedback to your brain just as much as your brain tells your face to smile. So those interconnectedness, I don't think is taught or is emphasized. I don't think nutrition is being given as an option to people. I like the American diet is terrible, and I don't think it's really addressed as like the root of it. But maybe it's starting to now. But I guess to more succinctly answer your question, I think there's not enough time or thought to the holistic approach.
I love this. And what's really interesting is that if you ask doctors, a lot of them would actually tell you that they are missing that themselves.
For sure.
Yeah. What's really interesting is take a physician and see them become a patient, and you'd be shocked. You'd be like, hold on.
Yes.
Anyone else, they don't want to take medicine.
Yeah.
And if they are taking a medicine, it has to be like, they have to be convinced. Yeah, the standard. It's funny. So I had I think I had quite a bit of a module for nutrition in France. But it was much more about the number of calories. No, it was actually really, it was not my favorite. It was calories. It was like, how do you supplement someone that needs nutrition from outside, like with TPN, like,
TPN is like the only thing taught here.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what we learned. And it's like, wait, hold on. Like, there's so much more about nutrition. So it is, I fully agree with you. I think it's something that we should teach. Actually, honestly, I think we should teach it in high school and early on, because the same thing that I think finances should be taught early on as well. So,
yes. Agreed. I took both in high school, but on my own. Like, I just started taking outside nutrition classes in high school on my own, just from an athletic perspective. But yeah, it's fascinating to me how many adults know virtually nothing about nutrition. So there's I'll like recommend books or try to teach a little bit, or like, Jillian Michaels had a great phrase: if it came out of the ground or it had a mother, eat it.
Oh, I love that.
Like, and that just makes it very, very simple on it's whole foods. What was real? What was actually grown from the earth, or birthed from?
I love that. I love that. So you've shared so many wisdom, so many valuable points, and I kind of want to, like I said, I want to be make sure that your time, I know you're busy. If you had to close this to give hope, right, to maybe the younger self, what would you, when you felt like maybe at the end of a visit with another doctor that's telling you, sorry, like, I cannot see anything that's wrong with you, what would you tell that younger self right now?
Great question. At times, I think I pursued it so fervently, so determined, that I was a little bit driving myself crazy. So I think there's a calm and a peace that I feel now that I wish I could have given younger self. And part of that is just the road to get there. But I would say stay with it, but also sometimes the simpler approach is better. Like, instead of chasing specialists, like, follow your intuition and reconnect with your breath, with nature, with good nutrition, with more rest, and find Dr. Amigues a lot sooner.
Thank you. Well, Stacy, thank you so much. What a story. I think, it's so kind of you to being able to share this with everyone. Thank you. And to our listeners, whether you're in Colorado or outside, I hope this gives you hope that no, you are not doing something that's wrong. The system is really broken. It's all the doctors will tell you. There are so many doctors that are quitting medicine, which is so sad, because I do think that they love it. They just don't want to be in the system, and they don't see another way. So just know this: it's not you. It's the system. It's not even the doctors. It's the system. And so look elsewhere, find hope. And of course, if you're in Colorado or in, the surrounding area, or if you want to come and visit, because Colorado is the best state ever. I think I'm not going to say it. I think it's better than France, even though I love France. So come and, nice, sure. Another discussion. Come and see us, and come on UnabridgedMD. It would be an honor to see you, and maybe we can share a story of hope, then, of your story, then later on. Stacy, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you. Take care.